കാണുന്നു. Slideshow left. Okay, I think we can start, ma'am.
Okay, I think.
Okay, so Parth, welcome Parth. So we are beginning the session formally, and this is the first session, MA 001, Counselling Session number 1, and this relates, of course, to the postgraduate diploma in adult education, and IGNOR Regional Center Vadagara has been identified as the nodal center for this. A word about IGNOR Regional Center Vadagara. Last year, that is in 2022, we were awarded the award for the best regional center in the country. And ours is a baby regional center for that matter. It has been in existence only for the past 10 years or so. So we are the newcomers into the whole spectrum of IGNOR. So in spite of that, we hope we can manage the things in a okay manner. So welcome, Parth. And it is also my privilege to welcome Dr. Jalajakumari, our Assistant Regional Director and your resource person for this day. And Madam will be handling MA 001. Madam has a long experience in distance education as well as conventional education. Apart from being the Assistant Regional Director of IGNOR, Madam has also worked as the principal of a teacher training college. And plus, she was also a teacher for around 2 decades or so. So she has a wealth of experience, which can definitely be made use of by students like you. So welcome, ma'am, and over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your good words. And I think this is a very good opportunity for me to go back again to the field of education. And a little bit difference is there. MA Adult Education, the part of first year, PG in Adult Education, PG Diploma in Adult Education. So thank you. Let me start from the beginning.
Just a word in between. There's an attendance link. As and when you find time, please do fill up that attendance.
Okay. So this is our program is Postgraduate Diploma in Adult Education. And this is the first year of MA in Adult Education. So after completion PG Diploma in Adult Education, a student can enter to MA in Adult Education through lateral entry. And in PG Diploma in Adult Education, the first course, the program is PG Diploma in Adult Education, and the first course is MAE 001. It relates to understanding adult education. I hope the students have received the study materials. MAE 001, 3 blocks are there. All of you have received it, and you may be familiar with the study materials. SLM MAE 001, block 1. To give you a familiarization with the program and the course, I will tell you about the MAE 001, 3 blocks. There are 3 blocks, and in each block, what all units have included. Let us see once. Totally 15 blocks are there. In the first block, 15 units are there. In the first block, Development of Adult Education, Unit 1 deals with the basic concept, terms, features, and objectives of adult education. The second unit, a historical perspective of Indian adult education is written. That is Indian adult education, a historical perspective. In the third block, Unit 3, in the third unit, Block 1, global, regional, and national scenarios of literacy is given, where we'll be going through the adult education literacy programs going globally, regionally, and especially with a special reference to national scenario. In the Unit 4, policy on adult and lifelong learning is given. International and national perspectives of policy of adult education and lifelong learning is given in this unit specifically. In the next block, that is block 2, again 4 units are there. That block is named as Foundations of Adult Education. So after understanding what is adult education conceptually, then the historical perspectives. Now we are going to the foundations of adult education in block 2, in which the first unit, that is unit 5, is dealing with adult and lifelong learning elaborately, and an overview of philosophical foundations of adult and lifelong learning is specifically given. In the next unit, unit 6, trends in philosophical foundations of adult education is mentioned. Unit 7, psychology of adult learning and motivation. And unit 8, sociological background of adult and lifelong learning. Now let us see what about the block 3. Block 3 refers curriculum development, transaction and evaluation. So from unit 9 to 58 are given in block 3, and unit 9 is curriculum development in adult education. Community participation in curriculum development and transaction is given in unit 10. Unit 11 is dealing with teaching and training methods and techniques in adult education. Like that, unit 12 is curriculum transaction, its basics of communication in adult learning. Unit 13 deals with curriculum transaction, communication, media, systems and strategy. Unit 14 is curriculum transaction again, but the role of information and communication technology is mentioned. In the last unit of block 3, curriculum evaluation and adult education as usual of any system. So after developing and implementing, the system has to be evaluated. So from first to the end of the blocks and the end of the unit 15, if we are going through a very strategical approach from a conceptual framework of adult education, its implementation, and an educational approach for curriculum development, and final an evaluation of the transaction can be seen. That's what the first course, MAE 001, is in such a way MAE 001 is framed. If I am generally asking you, what are the characteristics of adult education? I think two students, our learners are there, two learners are there, no? Can I ask you something? Can you share with me about
Yes,
your
ma'am, please.
concept on characteristics of adult education, please?
Sure. So,
Please.
ma'am, from whatever understanding I have, it's basically designing programs, courses, content which are more suited to adult learners.
Yeah.
So, adult in themselves have a particular way of thinking, how they approach, how they feel inspired and motivated, how do they retain and comprehend things. They're driven with a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
So, keeping all of these things in mind, how can the pedagogy or curriculum designing transaction can be made more appropriate for them?
Good. Wonderful. Wonderfully explained. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. So, as a learner going to face the examination of this particular paper, particular course, systematically we have to go through a lot of terminologies. Before that, enter into that particular terminologies, briefly we have to ascertain what will be the basic characteristics of characteristic of adult education. Certainly, it is mainly dealing with the age of the learner. That is what the first characteristic we can say, that it is of really based on the age of the learner. All learning process are based on the age of the learner only, but particularly of this one. A general approach we cannot take in the matter of curriculum transaction, pedagogical transaction, and all, because the maturity of the learner and the educational background and the prerequisite stage of the learner has to be considered before framing all these matters, like all other formal education system. So the peculiarities of the adults has to be uh, considered before framing the adult education um, strategies or the adult education system for its maintenance, and also these characteristics has to be are to be considered. Then a psychological question means a concern of psychology. I have to ask with you. What do you mean by an adult? Before framing the education for adults, we have to consider what is an adult. Can you please tell me?
Sure. So, ma'am,
We
from the
both are
base,
adults, but I need to have particular characteristics of an adult.
sure. So, as per the definition, there is a certain age at which a person is called adult. In India, it is 18. And with that age, they also have certain rights and responsibilities. So, for example, they can cast vote. And it's also a certain level of maturity and psychological development. So, yeah, I think it's more driven by both social and biological
Yeah.
elements of about
First
the
in what
person.
means it is basically based on the age.
Yes,
Even though the person is matured or if not at to the level of the maturity expected at that particular age, he will be able to cast vote, isn't it?
right.
Yeah. But education is little bit different process.
Hmm.
But person has to be educable.
Hmm.
Generally, almost all are educable, but in psychological manner, when we are considering a person's educability is based on the IQ, their interest, aptitude, attitude. So many other matters are there.
Right.
When we are considering the adulthood, that person should have a mentality to learn with us on the basis of the objectives framed for that particular curricula, isn't it? For that, the mental set of the person is very important. And in the maturity or the word adulthood in psychology, two terminologies are there. One is maturity, the other is education. So to attain adulthood or maturity, education itself is needed along with the physical and means biological aspects. So that if a person is a mature person, in appearance he may be or she may be a mature person in means as a grown up person with a physical development when we are telling tall and the other peculiarities of biological peculiarity of that person will be okay. But when we are approaching them for a particular emotional setup or to take some decisions in a problematic situation or a particular situation wherein the person is being irritated or provoked, and so many social situations are there before us, isn't it? In such a circumstance, how we are behaving, how sensible we are to handle that situation is one of the main peculiarity of being matured. That is why we are telling that in maturity, physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, and morally, all these comes. That's why if a grown-up person is behaving in a childish manner with having no patience to deal with, then we will always tell that be a mature person or behave in a mature person. Means in that particular age we expect something from that person. That is what the psychological maturity we mean. So, along with their physical growth, developmental aspects also have to be uh, incorporated. Then only we can say that a person is a mature person. So, when an adult is specifically considered for a particular education or continuing education, that maturity level is a very important aspect. That's right. So all the emotional setup, the strength to uh, empathize with others, like that, everything is needed for an adult. Such an adult, that is the concept regarding an adult. Such an adult has to be considered in adult education. So to become an adult, this is what an adult. Then how to become an adult? That's also an important aspect when we are dealing with adult education. The very important matter we have to consider to bring up or to nurture a person to adulthood is the main thing is one I told maturity regarding or in continuation we are acquiring after the development and growth. Then second thing is education. So maturity plus education both are needed for adulthood. Maturity is one aspect is age and the second aspect is developmental aspects. Regarding education, individual education and social education is very important. What do you mean by individual education? For our cognitive development, our personal achievements, our familial development, we have, or on the basis of the motivation or ambition, we are always attaining a level of education. That is what individual education. Simply I am telling. Maybe so many complicated other different definitions will be there, but in a simple manner we can say that the person for the personal benefits or the surroundings of that person, not a far surroundings but the nearby surroundings, the education is imparted for an education is an individual education. But when it is broadened in a social manner or in a social setup, that's social education. So adult education comes under social education more than that of individual education. Both are there. So individual education and adult, social education is needed in considering the maturity of the person and education in adulthood to give adult education. So who is an adult? How an adult is being made up, and what are the factors for making an adulthood or complementing to an adulthood, and what is the role of education in that, and what is the role of maturity in that. All these matters are discussed in our study material as the introductory part of our adult education program. Then, so who is an adult, how it is obtained, and what is adult education. So if we are implementing an education to satisfy the needs of an adult, that is what adult education. Specifically, the UNESCO 1976 conference has given a comprehensive definition regarding adult education as the entire body of organized educational processes, whatever content, level, and method, whether formal or otherwise, whether they prolong or replace initial education in school, colleges, colleges and universities, as well as in apprenticeship, whereby persons regarded as adults by the society to which they belong develop their abilities, enrich their knowledge, improve their attitudes or behavior, the twofold perspective of full personal development and participation in balanced and independent social, economic, and cultural development. A very big definition and comprehensive definition. Let us go through the each and every aspect of this definition. Please go through that. The entire body of organized educational processes means adult education is the entire system which provides the educational processes. Then the content of the system means what is going to be taught. Then for which level that education is going to be given. If it is for the students from 20 year to 25 or 80-year-old people, whatever it is, the level of the student and the method implementing for teaching them. Sometimes we are imparting this education through formal system. Sometimes otherwise means through non-formal system. So through formal or non-formal. What is the next concept? See, whether they prolong or replace initial education in school. This adult education may be given for replacing the education initially started from the school, and for some other people, this may be for a prolonged education, means continuing education. Sometimes it may be imparted through school, and for some others, it is through colleges and universities. Some may be given as apprenticeship, means a skill training, like your institution. If you are giving a skill training, or if you are giving an opportunity for apprenticeship, they are also that they are also studying. That adult education is imparted there. Then, through this education, persons regarded as adults. So, considering the people as adults, the entire body system which organizes the education process, which comprises the content and imparting the education, considering the level of the learner in a particular manner, means in a particular strategy or method, through formal or non-formal system. And sometimes the education may be a prolonged process or for a particular period of learning, through which institution it is being imparted. Everything comes under the adult education definition and concept. And this education ultimately has the objective to develop their abilities, enrich their knowledge, their the change, to make changes in their attitude. That is what called behavioral change, in for a full personal development, or as an independent person, or a social being in a social, economic, and cultural development based situation. So all these matters comes under adult education. Now, let me ask you one thing. Can you please tell me? There, two students are there. No, I cannot see them because of this presentation. Two people are there. No.
One student, the other is me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Second,
yes,
I
ma'am.
heard
There.
one notes of their entry. No, nothing is there. So, can you please tell me in brief what all things are coming under this one?
I missed your question, ma'am. Can you repeat, please?
Can you please briefly tell me the points coming under the concept of adult education?
Yeah, so basically it describes that how.
Based on the description given by me, or the slide, please.
Sure, sure. So basically, adult continues to learn throughout their life. So it's not a static process, it's a dynamic one. Therefore, education, both formal, informal, which allows the person to learn and grow, develop their skills, knowledge, abilities, improve their behavior so that they're able to become better contributors to the society and cultural development. So that's what adult education looks at. Yeah.
Okay. So I can tell why I was telling that this definition is a comprehensive definition. That's why I selected it,
Mm-hmm.
because the aim of adult education, the institution through which it has to be provided, about the content, about the curriculum, the level of learning, the student maturity level, and all that matters has been considered in this definition, isn't it?
Right, right.
So on the basis of that, is it compatible to you? Means, can you? Is there any need to put this on slideshow mode? Visible, no?
Visible, ma'am.
Visible.
Yeah,
We
visible.
can read also.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Readable.
Okay. If the slides are like this, it will be uh, convenient for me to skip for some discussions and all. That's why.
Sure. It's perfectly fine, ma'am.
Okay. So, from the definition, these characteristics can be generated. Means adult education is a lifelong process and a life-wide process. It is lifelong and life-wide,
Hmm.
isn't it? That life-wide means what? In the every aspects of our life, every stages, not only the stages, our individual life, our social life, our professional life, like that, every aspects of life comes under this one, and it can be continued towards. That is why that is lifelong and life wide. And for human development, And democracy comes because it is the right of the person to get educated throughout their life. That concept is also there. So democracy is there. It is critical. Means what an adult learner is always free to tell their choices, to reflect on the matters, reflect on the learning or the life situations they are acquiring or they are provided with. That reflective practice of education or the critical aspects of education will be can be um, uh, taken place in this process of adult education. Like that, their citizenship, social justice, cultural aspects, their diversity of life, social inclusion, human rights, peace, gender equality, and especially their economic, political, and cultural development transformation, amongst others, will also be considered in this adult education. That is why the all-round development of a person is uh, is being the prime matter of concern for adult education. We cannot say that in a person's school time or in the continuing education stage of university level, the person will be able to accomplish with all the livelihood patterns or livelihood ambitions of that person in that period of time, limited period of time. So definitely the complementary education system given to him is necessary for the all-round development of the person. So throughout the program, that aspects are coming, and we have to consider the every stage of education in this, and how UNESCO states and so many other definitions are given in your study material. Please go through. I think many more than 10 or 15 definitions are there throughout the content in several situations, several circumstances on the basis of the importance or specification given to the matter. Different types of definitions are have been given in your study material. Go through all that and learn it well. And especially, I was focusing on this UNESCO definitions because it is globally accepted and it is comprehensive. That is why. Specifically, the social, political, and economic, geographic, cultural conditions are considered in definitions of adult education because that is the base for the philosophical and sociological basis for developing an adult education system. Then, in some situations, it comes as post vocational education, and it is for deprived classes also and skill training. You know it well because you are also the part of adult education and you are giving some skill training to the society. And one of the main aspect is basic aspect is literacy in adult education. Have you heard of this Paulo Freire? No,
No, ma'am.
no. He is coming in the uh, adult education scenario with a particular definition he framed because it's a cultural action of freedom. This has to be mentioned a little bit because education actually is a process of freedom, and he, the one who taught adult education as a cultural action of freedom. Can you please tell what this implies? Cultural action of freedom. Can you?
Thinking, ma'am. Well, action for freedom.
It's a cultural action of freedom. There, Paulo Freire is a writer and educationist who wrote a book,
Mm-hmm.
Pedagogy of the Oppressed. It's a
Okay.
very nice book,
Okay.
and it is for alternative education.
Hmm.
Pedagogy of the Oppressed, where a great saying is there, means he wrote that the current scenario education, the school level and college level education, is banking of education. What do you mean by banking of education? Means by hearing that terminology, what comes into your mind? Banking of education. Banking is something we are investing, no? But banking is not simple investing, but we are getting some profit from that also,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, in financial matters it is so. But Paulo Freire is not agreeing with that. He is telling that the current scenario education is simply information banking. Hmm?
Right.
It is not like our economic concept, a financial concept. We are simply putting some knowledge somewhere, and students are just means if one student is getting a certificate, nobody is able to assess whether it is a credible certificate. Sometimes mark will be there because the formal education system is always making the student to learn something by heart and grasping the knowledge. But how it is working for the individual development, freedom of mind, and social education and the development of culture is not at all evaluated anywhere. That's what he is telling. So our normal education system is simply investing information to the brain of the learner.
Right.
So this education won't do anything for the benefit of the oppressed people. That so we have to frame a new pedagogy or new content, new curriculum for the people who are labeled as oppressed. That is what oppressed pedagogy in his concept. In that way, he is telling that a cultural action for freedom means every student should be able to reflect their freedom and needs. Hmm? So we are giving the government our democratic setup of the current scenario. Current scenario means not the current scenario. Our modern education system is providing all the facilities, scholarships, midday meals in school level. If I am telling midday meals, all other granting is there to aid the students to promote their education or for the universalization of primary education and even up to higher secondary level, especially in almost all the countries. It's a worldwide concept, universalization of education. But there is no provision to assess other than that of the marking, grading system, and certification to know whether the learner is satisfied with the knowledge gained or the system, the provided education by the system, like that. So Paulo Freire doesn't think, he is not of the opinion that our current scenario education is not the action of freedom. But he says, if we are providing adult education, it is at a correct scenario when the learner is thinking that whatever education or what type of education is needed for the learner can be the person can select it, the person can choose it according to the need of that person. But the school education or college education formally we are following is simply everybody is going behind.
Right. Yeah.
That system is there, so we are learning. Nobody can be left out of the education system, so everybody will send their children to school, isn't it?
True.
Yeah. But till the end of the objective of education or till the end of the system, nobody will be there. Most of the people will be uh, going out from the system step by step, stage by stage.
Right.
Students are enrolling for first standard or for a pre-primary education. 15% or 20% will be going for uh, some higher level of education.
Correct.
When the level is going up and up, after when it reaches up to graduation, the percentage will be again going down.
Hmm.
And when it comes at master's degree, it will again go down. Finally, only a few will come up to the level of other than the beyond the master degree level, isn't it?
Right.
Because the right choice of education nobody knows. Only a few knows. Nobody knows. We cannot say. Only a few know.
Hmm.
And real education is, according to the definitions of education, it's Mahatma Gandhi or Swami Vivekananda. They are telling about an emancipation level of attainment, or bringing out the best in man and child, like that, body, mind,
Hmm.
and spirit, like that. So many definitions are there for education. On the
Hmm.
basis only curriculum is developed, objectives are framed, but that freedom of education. In Gitanjali, what Tagore says, raise me up to that freedom of. So many
Hmm.
things he is telling, and then telling, raise me up to that freedom, isn't it? So finally, true education is making freedom to the individual, freedom
Hmm.
to the learner. If the education or the education system is not providing that freedom to education, we cannot say that it is a right action. It will not be a cultural action. So if you are getting chance, you please read Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Oppressed. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it will help us to create a new curriculum for the adults. So all activities are programs for adults. General, non-formal, vocational and non-vocational education, not restricted to any particular level. All these are other peculiarities of adult education. So in adult education only that freedom we get. That is what um, Paulo Freire says. Then, do we think that adult education is an organized educational process? Is it? Is it systematically organized?
Some part of it, yes, but not.
Hmm.
But there's much more which is beyond.
Yeah. Organized system is there, and at
Yeah.
the same time, we cannot say
And
that everything is not up to that way.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it encompasses all content, levels, and methods. Do you agree with me?
Right. Yeah.
Definitely. Because it provides from any lower level to higher level.
Hmm.
Isn't it? So it is flexible like that. So many methods of learning process are encompasses, and any content can also be any content, vocational, non-vocational, literacy level, whatever it is needed, it can be encompasses with adult education curriculum, isn't it? Then the other peculiarities we have already told,
Hmm.
because it's a developmental process, full personal development, everything, it is repetition only. Here, when a person is dealing with adult education, these points specifically we have to um, look into. Means vocational, at the same time non-vocational education for people who have left school, and not formally registered for a college and university course leading to certification. That is one thing. It has to be provided daytime or evening tuition like. Then extra mural or extension department or a college or a university, means this is institutional clarification they are giving about.
Hmm.
And such as even in a trade union or any non-governmental organizations can also impart adult education, isn't it? Some workers association, they are giving training programs, orientation programs, that also be considered in adult education. So when an adult student, NIO is National Institute of Adult Schooling. One person, he was not able to complete his school education. He or she could not complete school education, and there is a facility and provision for completing in a systematic manner. Even though it is not formal, that provision is there in National Institute of Open Schooling and in open universities, isn't it? So, from school level, or when we are thinking about adult education, don't think that the education imparted through some organizations for adults only. Even though any non-governmental organizations, private institutions, any gathering can give adult education programs, can offer adult education programs with any curriculum, any content, at any place, at any level. That's all. Even school education can be put into continuing education through adult education. And recreational activities, sporting activities, etc., all are coming under adult education. Not skill development, vocational or non-vocational or other school, college curriculum, but this artistic programs, cultural programs, music,
Hmm.
dance,
Hmm.
whatever it is, recreational activities, community development programs. If you are, do you know that you are from which state?
I'm from which? What, ma'am?
Which state?
State Delhi. I'm from Delhi.
You are from Delhi.
Yeah.
Do you know the Kudumbashri of Kerala? Have you heard of it?
I haven't, ma'am. What is it?
Kudumbashri. Kudumba means family.
Okay.
Kudumba means family. Kudumbashri means, it's a Malayalam terminology. It is the grassroots level unit of women. And this
Right.
is a development, the worldwide famous development model of Kerala. Hmm? Because any kind of education we can impart through this Kudumbashri. And nowadays, all the three-tier, the local self-government activities, programs are uh, functioning through the small units of Kudumbashris in Kerala.
Got it. Got it. Yeah.
And that is providing a lot of provisions for adult education. In the
Hmm.
model of adult education, the system is, that is why I am telling that the community, recreational and community development activities, that is why I told that. Even for familial activities, for home science, for
Hmm.
cooking, for cleaning, for gardening, for poultry farming, whatever be the part of our life as small scale industries, small scale activities, or even the domestic activities of our livelihood, people are being trained for community development and individual development, through which state development and then national development. That will come when I will tell you. And here a particular terminology was given, that given in the study material, that education of adults and education for adults. Do you think these two usages are different, or both are same? Do you have any opinion for that? Education of adults. What do you mean by that?
I think language-wise, ma'am, they look very similar.
Language wise, it is very similar,
It,
but concept wise,
I feel conceptually also. I'm just guessing. They appear to be similar to me.
a little bit difference is there. Conceptually also,
Okay.
but when we are education of adults, immediately adult education comes in our mind, isn't it? If we are telling education for adults, then also adult education will come.
Hmm.
But a small difference is there, because education of adults means it is not only the education provided for adults, but of adults means the adult behavior, adult needs, and so many other matters or things related to adults will come under education of adults.
Okay.
Understand?
Hmm.
But education for adults means the education framed for imparting adult education. Do you have any objection for that?
I'm not able to get the difference, ma'am. So
Education
which
of
is the
adults
larger
means,
one?
yeah, adults have their own peculiarities, their needs. So many means everywhere according to the culture, the geographical peculiarities. Adults may have different types of needs,
Hmm.
behavioral patterns, diseases,
Right.
approach, attitude. We cannot think that a Delhi adult sometimes may be different from an interior part of um, coastal areas or other hilly areas sometimes,
Hmm.
isn't
Hmm.
it? Hmm? Their health conditions, their attitude, their skill level, all are different. Urban and rural people, their style of life, their thoughts, their concepts regarding all the social matters, their health level, their interests, everything will be different.
Hmm.
An education which provides a situation to learn all these matters is known as education of adults. So we are studying that adults,
Right.
their social life.
Hmm.
But education given for adults for their development is different.
Okay.
Understood?
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm? So in the first terminology, a particular education is there to study the adults.
Okay.
And then an education which provides the development of adults means it is we are framing a curriculum for that, we are giving an institution wise involvement for that, and all assessment, all educational processes like a formal system or non-formal system is there.
Hmm.
But education of adults is it's a little bit free. Anybody can, in an anthropological way, in a sociological way, if we are studying adults, that is education of adults.
Understood. Got it.
Understood. Okay. So I think in the assignment and in examination questions also, this has been repeated several times.
Okay.
Hmm? That is why I specified it's not such a big matter, but a little bit difference is there for both terminologies. That is what. What do you mean by fundamental education? Is there any difference between why I am telling all these words? These terminologies are some basic terminologies prior to the development of adult education. So we have to have a thorough knowledge on this particular point,
Hmm.
terminologies. Then only we can frame or we will be able to accept the functionalities of adult education. That is why. So education of adults and education for adults are a little bit differences there, but both comprises together when adult education scenario comes. Then what do you mean by fundamental education? Here it is written. If one person has had no opportunity to have traditional and formal schooling, if we are imparting that, we are compensating that opportunity by providing education, that type of education is known as fundamental education.
Got it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then formal, non-formal, and informal education. I think this is familiar to almost all. Especially you are also the part of one skill training, so you know
Right.
what is formal.
Yeah.
Basis regularly, on regular basis in institutional basis with this, some strict curriculum and organizational way, we are providing formal education, isn't it?
Right. Right.
What is non-formal?
So which is beyond set systems or set institutions.
But it doesn't mean that there is no formality. No,
Hmm.
there is also some formality, but less formality. Sometimes it is without formality, but if we are providing an education systematically without that much formality, that also can be called as non-formal.
Right.
For example, our system, our distance education is a non-formal system of education,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
but some formalities are there. No, let's say we
Right.
are sitting in this class,
Right.
we have to submit the assignment,
Hmm.
we have to write the examination in time.
So there
Time,
are
yeah,
formalities. Yeah.
yeah. Then some formalities are there, but it is less.
Hmm.
So totally it is not formal. So you know what is non-formal. Then what about informal?
I think informal is a place or a system where there are no formalities. Uh,
Incidental. Informal is,
Incidental. Yes.
yeah, if, we are watching TV. A lot of information we are getting, no?
Correct. Correct.
Nowadays through internet, we
Hmm.
are gaining knowledge for everything.
Hmm.
Whatever doubts you have, immediately you can Google and find it out.
Absolutely.
Then conversation in a society, from our peers, from our friends, from
Hmm.
our family members, from the world around, from nature. Everywhere we are getting some knowledge always.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. That is what informal education. So non-formal, formal, non-formal, and informal. You got it, no?
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
Ah, definitely, all these three, everything comes under adult education. What do you think? Is it?
Yes,
Yes.
it does.
Yes.
It does.
Of course. So in adult education, also all these type of education comes.
Hmm.
The other things we have already told because it is ranging from primary education to higher education, like that. Vocational, non-vocational, everything comes under.
Right.
And in non-formal, some relaxation is there.
Hmm.
Other than that of this formal, it gives us more freedom to be free.
Right.
In a relaxed manner, we can study, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Then this terminology, especially we have to deschooling. Then what is deschooling? Why? Because all these terminologies are incorporated to generate the adult education system. Hmm? So, think about deschooling. This is in continuation of this freedom for uh, cultural learning, or the freedom of education for culture, like that I told about Paulo Freire, isn't it? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
hear you.
So regarding this deschooling,
Hmm.
it is the all the rigid formal education system is a one point entry or a single point admission system and regular attendance, definite common syllabus, rigid timing periods, teaching, learning, everything is and so on, isn't it? To be free from this type of education, a student can leave the formal system and learn. Do you know any that type of education system in your circumstance or in your knowledge? No.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. Have you heard of alternative education?
I've heard the term, ma'am, but I haven't gotten a chance to read more about it, what it
Okay.
entails
Yeah, I'll
exactly.
tell you. I'll give you one small story. Means in Wayanad district, Wayanad is the northern part of Kerala, the hilly terrain of Kerala, like Idukki. Munnar, have you heard of it?
Hmm. Yes.
You
Yeah.
visited Munnar.
No, I haven't.
Like that, the northern end of Kerala is also another uh, district named Wayanad. One, the peculiarity of that place is a lot of tribal settlements are there.
Right.
One writer who was a school teacher, he went there in the tribal settlement, and no education, formal education was imparted to the children of that particular tribal settlement.
Hmm.
What he did, he made a small hut there, and as per the convenience of the children, they will come and visit him. Hmm? And he will assign duties. Duties means sometimes they have to go for agricultural purposes, and they will make the soil good fertile, and that type of all works for agricultural farming. Then sometimes they may take the cattle to somewhere to, you know that, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
And they will assign the duty, means as per the level of the student when they grown up, he will assign the duty of some other social activities, means making food and giving to some other people who doesn't have it, and going in a place where a palliative pain and palliative care is needed for a particular person. All together, this teacher, means his wife and he, uh, together they are doing all these activities. Their
Hmm.
social activities are there. If they are getting some uh, ripe fruits, they will make them to count.
Hmm. Right.
Ah, then they will find it out which soil and which part of the soil is better for this crop, and which part is for the another crop, and which way they have to walk without the without getting any harm from the wild animals, how to collect water from there, how to keep things in a good manner without getting infected, and like that all the matters needed for our daily life will
Right.
be given to them.
Hmm.
There
Hmm.
is no compulsion to come every day at this sharp time to the school, like
Hmm.
that. Hmm?
Yeah.
But after several years, many of them have learned writing, reading, even speaking English very well, and some
Hmm.
of them have gone somewhere to as photographers. Some have done some mural paintings. Some became good singers,
Hmm.
dancers, artists, activists, like that.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So without a specific rigid curriculum,
Hmm.
or a single window to enter, a single door to for exit, they have learned everything needed for their life. They
Right.
were free.
Hmm.
This is an example for deschooling. You got it?
Yes. Yes.
So such kind of alternative education system can be called as called in the
Hmm.
uh, title of deschooling.
Got it. Got it.
Then
Ma'am,
yes,
I'm really sorry to interrupt. Actually, ma'am, there is an office meeting which I have at 4 o'clock. I
yeah,
had
okay,
since it's a weekday, I had requested if I can at least attend 1 hour of session. And I was looking at the schedule. There are some sessions next week as well.
yeah.
Uh, So I was thinking maybe.
Just a minute, sir. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Please.
What to do, sir? He's asking.
And what was the issue?
Actually, sir, I have an office call at 4 since it's
Okay.
a working day. I was
Okay.
thinking that at least I'd requested if I can attend 1 hour of the session today. And since
Mm-hmm.
ma'am will also be taking some sessions next week, I can
Okay.
attend the remaining part during one of those sessions. I'm really sorry
Uh,
for the inconvenience.
okay. That is a compulsion. I'm known to say anything, but okay, ma'am. What you can do is that
You can,
you can continue with the session, ma'am,
yeah, yeah, I know, I understood.
and we will put it on this thing also, YouTube
Okay,
also.
okay, okay. No.
So,
Okay, okay.
Mr. Parth, if you want, you can exit.
Yeah,
Sure, sure. Just wanted to thank you, ma'am. This was really helpful. And thank you for clearing
no
all the
problem, no
queries.
problem.
And do join next week.
Absolutely, sir. Would really want to.
Sure.
Okay, okay,
Thank
thank
you, ma'am.
you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, welcome, welcome.
So the next terminology is lifelong education. When we are speaking on lifelong education, there is a learning society. It is a little bit higher order learning objective, because a person or a society is learning throughout their life. That is lifelong education. The terminology itself is describing the meaning. So there should be a learning society in lifelong education. And that's the peculiarity of that society is it is a knowledge society. We are learning throughout our life, deliberately, not like informal education, but deliberately. If we are going through a learning process, definitely such a society will be a knowledge society. And the scientific humanism is also a need of this hour. So a day by day society is changing. Every aspects of life, scientific involvement is there in our day-to-day domestic life or in other places. Always we need to have a scientific approach. So lifelong education always help us to be scientific and be logical and to attain the higher end objectives of our life. And the fullest sense of the term means lifelong education means that business, industrial and agricultural firms will have extensive educational functions. Whatever education we are doing for the development of our profession, our business, our industry, and for even agriculture, it is needed to sustain. So that is what we mean by lifelong education. So, role of education in personal and social development, particularly in the context of globalization, because we have to survive with the all developments of this globe. We cannot live like the ancient period or the earlier era because globalization is there. We have to move along with the whole people of the world. So, this concept of lifelong education is famous in France, and they are calling that terminology in. This is specifically mentioned in the material, and something a little bit elaboration is also giving, and that is called as permanente, means permanent education. That is what lifelong education. Another terminology is recurrent education. Recurrent education is the reoccurring education. That is what recurrent education. So the distribution of education over the lifespan of the individual in a recurring way means the education is organization of a lifelong education into periods of systematic study alternating with extended periods of other activity. For example, work or leisure. Policy instruments of recurrent education fall into two categories: educational and non-education. Educational recurrent activities and non-educational recurrent activities are there. Means reoccurring means what we have lost once. The same thing we are taking back. That is what recurrent education. If a learner or an adult has lost his school education, he can start from there again through recurrent education. So, all these are the basic concepts of um, adult education. Again, further education is there. This further education is the next step. Wherever we have stopped, from there we can go ahead. That is what further education. So, the adults of all stages at their post secondary levels includes extensive programs designed to keep such professionals as physicians, and so many professions are given here. So all the professionals where they have stopped in the and they were entering to a profession, and further steps they are taking. If a person who have completed his degree and entered to a job, then from there they are taking master degree, that is called further education. So that is also coming as an aspect of adult education. And then continuing education. Continuing education, as the terminology tells, constant learning. To a particular level means continuation of learning. It is also for the development of up-to-date field development and attainment of objectives in education, in life. But uh, there is a little bit difference between lifelong education and continuing education. Continuing education is sometimes at a particular level we can stop it, but lifelong education is it ends at the top. Means till the end of our lifetime we are continuing education. That education is known as lifelong education. Maybe non-formal or informal or non-formal, whatever it may be. So it is a broad sense terminology, lifelong education. But if deliberately we are taking the education process we are continuing our education process for a particular objective, and we can continue it till end. Even we can stop it at some level. That is what continuing education. But whatever education comes in our life, throughout our life, and we will be conscious about it, that is what lifelong education. Now,
Just one intervention, madam. When
yes.
we talk about this continuous education, lifelong education,
Ah.
then where will you actually place our distance education as such?
Distance education, yes, sir.
Yeah. But, there is often a confusion with regard to where we can actually place distance education as. Should
Distance
be placed under lifelong education or continuing education?
both, sir.
Okay.
Both. If you are continuing till the end of your education in a formal, some people are there, especially in IGNOU, we have some 80, 85-year-old people, and they are still up to the up to the good level of their health condition. They are continuing their education, no?
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that also possible. So, lifelong education, if we are considering in a formal way, distance education is the best mode for that.
Yeah. I agree.
In the same sense, distance education is helping the learner for continuing education also.
Very true.
It can stop also.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe
no.
over a period of time, a person undergoing continuing education may transform himself into a lifelong student
Yeah,
as
they
well.
can definitely.
Yeah.
Continuing education will be considered converted into lifelong education.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Kindly continue.
Yeah. Okay. Now we are coming to the different formal sense of means the institutionalized education of this adult education. What are the basic concepts on that? Especially this distance education. We are also the part of distance education, and our adult education students are also the part of distance education. At the same time, open education. But in earlier period, when distance education started, uh, it was known as correspondence education, and the way of transaction was highlighted in that. In correspondence education in earlier days, especially in 1980s, and before that also in United States and other countries, correspondence education was very highly it was going on, and this corresponding education was the highlight of this correspondence education is that the study materials will be there. The study materials will be in the form of printed materials, and by post it will be given to the learners, and there will be some a particular kind of interactive lessons, means contact classes were there to give a feel of formal education or classroom atmosphere to the learners, and they were studying themselves. At the rest of the time, the students were studying themselves, and they were writing their examinations, and assignment submission was that activities were also there, but it was limited to the printed material transaction by post, like that only. No other technological interference was there in correspondence education. Am I correct, sir? Can contribute some points, I think.
No, you are absolutely right, madam. Please go on. I will intervene in between.
Okay. So at the end of the classes and knowledge transaction, there will be an examination, like a certification and all, and degrees, diplomas, or uh, what level they are imparting. That was given to the student. It was going on like that. Actually, it was one. I think the old method of distance education. I think. But when it comes to distance education, a lot of differences came, and the organization or the system, distance education system, became more systematic than the correspondence education, and the self-study materials and the student counseling had a role than that of the correspondence education. and the presentation of the learning materials and considered so serious, and the preparation of the study materials was also considered as a prime matter on the basis of educational philosophy, educational sociology, and psychological aspects of education more than that of the correspondence period. Because in corresponding education, simply like printed materials they were printing, and there was no these type of psychological, philosophical aspects were considered, and but students were learning themselves, and they were studying, and when they are getting the correspondence classes, at that time only they were getting opportunity for communication with the teachers. But in distance education, peer interaction, other technological interventions, team of teachers availability, and that kind of intervening of the whole system is always available in distance education to the learners. And distance learners are more responsible persons than the correspondence learners. And studies telling that the dropout rates of correspondence education was very high because it was not that much systematic. And distance education give a wide range of uh, geographical inclusion in the mode of education, because the technological interventions always give opportunity to uh, come together with their peers or with their teachers. That opportunity is there in distance education, and the guidance services and student support services are provided in a very systematic and regular manner, and library like that, external facilities are also provided to the students, and the it's a philosophical and psychological approach is more important than correspondence education to distance education. And
In
when
fact,
it
madam,
comes,
there is one intervention that I would like to make. Distance education, frankly, today I feel has become a generic term,
yeah,
like much beyond what correspondence education ever was.
yes,
Especially the aspect of technology integration that we talked about, that I feel was the most important part as far as distance education is concerned.
yes,
Of course, the psychological aspect, the caring for the student, the continuity of concern with the student. You just don't leave the student to himself. You constantly follow up on his needs, both
yes,
academic as well as in a non-academic manner. The kind of interactions that you have, then through various things like assignments and all that, the kind of guided pedagogic methodology that you adopt. I feel all these things have made distance education much, much more vibrant
yes,
than
yes, of course.
correspondence education ever was. Kindly continue.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir. And this e-involvement, e-support involvement of the current scenario is highly developing the system. And the accessibility and the approachability of the students, that is also a peculiar thing. By the terminology itself, a learner can study from anywhere. Like that, the system has been developed in distance education. And
Exactly.
yes, again, it has been developed in another way, that is what open learning. So, like Indira Gandhi National Open University. So, open and distance learning is now, that is the current terminology we are using for open learning, including distance education. And now, open distance learning is the relevant matter we are going through. Isn't it, sir? And in open learning, we are adding
Very true,
more
madam.
flexibility. Yeah, we are adding
In
some.
fact, yeah, flexibility, and I feel currently we should move into an era of open distance and e-learning.
E-learning, correct,
Because
correct.
E is also becoming very important. The
Yeah.
electronic mode of learning, that is the current bus, and therefore I feel when we talk about distance education as such, we should use the terminology open education and e-learning more often
Yes, yes,
in
yes.
today's scenario. I feel
Our class itself is an evidence for that.
exactly, exactly,
So,
exactly.
so that openness is there. Openness in many way. because the
Yeah.
admission process, the students, so many students are getting opportunity to join in open distance learning system, because without the uh, segregation of the eligibility criteria, sometimes a liberal approach is there for eligibility. Eligibility criteria is there as per the university system norms or the apex body norms. All the eligibility criteria is there, but the all eligible persons will get into the system. That is the opportunity open learning offering, isn't it, sir?
Exactly.
Exactly. So, like other formal system, we are not restricting students up to a cut-off mark and all. All eligible students who are eligible for higher education or for further education will come in the platform of open education. And open education is giving them more opportunity of timing, duration of courses, selection of courses, like that. And
Yeah,
there are
but one point that I would like to emphasize here is that open learning need not be associated only with distance education, isn't it?
yes,
Even traditional education can modify itself to be
no
open
open.
systems,
Yeah,
because openness is more of a philosophical term,
yeah.
where the philosophy
Open
of
distance
openness,
learning is different.
yeah, different. Whereas open and distance learning is a different cup of
Different.
tea altogether. Though the fact
With the
is
all
that it is only,
flexibilities, if we
yeah,
are offering distance education, that is open and distance learning.
distance learning. Whereas even in traditional system, you can have open traditional system or open face-to-face system as well, if it is modified a bit.
This
Isn't it, madam?
dual mode, sir, I have a doubt. Let me ask you. This
Yeah,
dual mode learning means dual degree learning is an open provision, no?
yeah.
Is that
Definitely, it is an open process. It gives flexibility to
to
the learner.
anyone in the system?
Yeah. It gives flexibility to the learner. Yeah, that he can, in fact, study at both places. Of course, it depends on his ability or his the time that he has at his behest, where this dual mode of studies takes place. If you think more deeply about it, if you think more deeply about it, you will find that this dual mode of study has always existed. For example, if you look at the 11th and 12th standard, 11th and 12th standard students, especially in the state of Kerala, they have been studying for their entrance test through one mode, and also the classroom studies they have been completing for their +2 and all that. So they have been doing for example, there are many coaching institutes associated with entrance coaching and all that. So many students have been joining that and doing their coaching as well, which is much more rigorous than the classroom studies that they usually do at the 11th or 12th standard level. Plus, they are also covering the classroom studies. So I feel what the UGC has now done in terms of allowing both a person to have both kinds of courses together is just an extension of what we actually had in an informal manner earlier, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Please
day
tell
by
me.
day, the capacity of the learners are also growing, I think, because of
Exactly,
the technological development and because the society is also a knowledge-driven society. So even a little child is capable to learn through this one. So the utilization of all opportunities of educational openness is possible in this system, open and distance system. So IGNU is also doing like that, and it is the best example for open and distance learning system. So up to open learning, we have told the terminologies. It's coming uh, shoulder to this adult education system. And when we consider the curricular aspects of or the maintenance or generation of the system of adult education, some other educational terminologies we have to go through. That is because this particular block of this course 1, MAE 001, is telling about the understanding of adult education. And it is for developing the concept of adult education. So, some more terminologies we have to go through. That is what literacy. Literacy means it is not simply knowing the alphabets or counting, but it is something more than that. Literacy is reading, writing, and arithmetics. That 3R concept: reading, writing, and arithmetic. But numeracy is a person who is able to calculate using paper and pencil, adding, subtraction, multiplication, division, like that. If the person is able to do the processes of or functioning of numerals, that is what numeracy. Literate means a person who has literacy is literate. If the person is not able to read, write, and arithmetic, that person is considered as illiterate. Like that, a person who is having the ability of numeracy or to process or the functioning of numerals, that person is called numerate. And if he is not like that, he is innumerate. But an innumerate is a person who will be able to process the arithmetic processing mentally. For example, in a very rural area, a shopkeeper is there, or a person who is coming daily in our home with the fish. That man is able to calculate very easily. He will be able to calculate the money we have to give, or how much he has to give us back, like that. In within seconds, he will be able to process mentally the calculations. So if the person is innumerate, it means he is not able to do the calculations using paper and pencil or board and slate or like that, as a literate does, but he is able to calculate. So don't think that an innumerate is a person who doesn't know any calculation. That is what the difference between two. An illiterate is always very much able to communicate us by telling all the matters. He won't be able to write what he hears, but he knows. He is able to communicate. He has all the ability to communicate very well. So illiterate means the person who doesn't know the reading, writing, and arithmetic together as a person who learned. That's only. But it is only the basic ability of the person. Basic level learning needed for further studies. That's what. Another terminology is also there in adult education. That's andragogy, family andragogy, military andragogy, like that. This, what does it mean? Pedagogy, we know. Pedagogy is the science of teaching. Or when we are dealing with content, the transactions, that is what pedagogy. Like that, andragogy is, pedagogy and humagogy is same, because these terminologies are used in different countries in different ways, but the meaning is same. But andragogy is a terminology which means adult education. The transactions or the science of systematic approach of adult education is called andragogy. And social pedagogy is there. Special education area, or for inclusive education, we have to consider the social pedagogy. Means all kinds of persons. So pedagogy is the main thing here. We have to think before framing an adult education system or the curriculum of an adult education. Pedagogy and literacy, numeracy, literate, who is a literate, who is an illiterate, who is a numerate, who is an innumerate. All these concepts are needed for the study of adult education in a broad manner. That's what. Then, a functional literate. Literate, we told, a functional literate is one who has not acquired the basic skills in reading, functional illiterate is a person who doesn't have the capabilities or the basic skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and thus is unable to participate actively in the activities within the society to acquire a skill or further education. So, the first thing or the first aspect in adult education is making functional literacy. Find out people who are illiterate or functional illiterate and make them to functional literates for getting the basic requirement for further education. Further education or recurrent education or for continuing education or lifelong education, what is needed to that particular person. That is the concept regarding all these terminologies in adult education. And the adult education students, like we are always telling that in open and distance education, students are coming as per their wish, as per their need. Like this adult education is also like that. Adults are not coming for education with the compulsion of any other people, but they are self-motivated people and they are self-guided people, and with their own desire, they are coming for education and to solve the issues in their life. Whatever problem solving is a terminology generally we are using in education in a very broad manner, and the basic the ultimate aim of education is problem solving, we can say, because step by step in from the small classes also all onwards we are studying to solve problems. When we are drawing a picture, we are solving an urge which comes from our brain or from our mind to express something. When we have done it, we'll be happy. The educational drive is reduced, and the learner will be able to attain this level of satisfaction by solving the immediate the immediate needs and the urge of the learner. That is what the innate drive. So all education, all activities are guided by the self drive or to reduce the drive of the learner. In that way, we are studying a step of problem solving in our life, in our education. And that is why highly educated people are always able to take decisions and solve problems in their life. But it is based on the skills they are attaining. We were already telling that about the freedom of education, the ultimate cultural based education, and the need based education, and education for development, profession, etc. So an adult who comes forward to learn something with a specific objective is always trying to solve a problem. So ultimately, adult education is for problem solving. That is why they are approaching an organization or an institution to get help by their own wishes, by their own desires. And organized institutions can help them. And that type of organized institutions can be learner centered, means the adult centered. If education is for adult, it is a learner centered education system, and it is an development oriented education system. And that system itself is organized by adults, and the learner who can organize the system, and they can take the help of others. Hence, finally, we can say that all the adult education system is characterized by learner centered and development centered. Sometimes you may ask if whether this formal education and other non-formal education systems are not like that. Yes, of course, they are also like that. But the peculiarity is that it is a pre-planned system. Our formal education system is a pre-planned system. and we are bringing all the society and all the individuals into that system. Compulsorily it is going on. Naturally, people are thinking that we have to go to school, and no parent, no family member is thinking that our child should not be learned. Prior to the age attains for learning, or prior to the educable stage of development, we are thinking about a school system where our student has to be put for getting educated like that. It is a very big botheration nowadays, because it is a developed society's center it is. But in which a lot of people are there who didn't get their education in a proper way. So they are deciding which system is needed for them to compensate with the lost scenario. So the learner-centric approach here in adult education will be more than that of the formal and other non-formal system of education. That is what. Then, adult education is purposive. It is community specific. It doesn't mean that it is as a general trend, adult education is not providing. According to the need of the society, community based also adult education is given. That's why I was telling one example of, if a very remote area in a very underprivileged sector, we cannot provide a general type of education. There, as per the need of the society or that community, we are developing adult education system. So it is community based and culture specific, need based for problem solving. And at the same time, the adult who needs to have the learning is also being a part of that system. So it is a participatory system. If a particular society or a small area, a cluster of people, they are thinking that they have to have an evening session of classes every day in a particular place, and one of the sometimes it may be one of the house of one of the members of that society. So that participatory involvement can be taken place there. They themselves are preparing for contributing for others and for themselves, and in a flexible manner as per the need they can make it. And that education will definitely be relevant, because only the needed framework, needed objective is there, and that is action oriented. Means,
if you remember, ma'am, during the literacy drive of the 90s in Kerala, and of course in other parts of the country also, the same methodology was adopted. In the evening, after people came home from their work, they used to assemble at a small place, and then the basic literacy classes were taken by resource persons across the state and across the country also later on. But it was a huge success. I think it's because of the factors that you are mentioning that it could be such a big success. And literacy rates went up very rapidly in Kerala and other parts of the country.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In the rural areas, the people, they were selecting the learned person from among them, and they were the planning the system. They were finding out the curriculum. They were finding out. They were framing the content, and they were teaching. And mutually, they were facilitating each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in between, sometimes some, I think 2-3 months before, in our neighborhood, one old mother is there. She was one artisan, means I don't know what to tell, using this preparation of mats, sir. Mat. She knows how to make a mat.
Okay.
In Malayalam, we are telling Tazhapaya.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So she is the only one in that area who knows it. What Panchayat has done, Panchayat made a gathering of all the community people, and the new generation children were now in every week they are coming to this old mother's home, and she is teaching them how to make this mat using our this natural thing, and means it's a bio sustainable method of startup like they are planning now. And at Panchayat level, they can make a unit of this mat making, and the new generation will also be uh, educated with that. So I think action-oriented activities are coming under this adult education system, and this will always make the development of the economic development also in the societal. So many means what the skill development activities can also be imparted through this one. And if the adult education is going like this, it will definitely a dynamic and change-oriented activity, no doubt. So. They can make people aware of and conscious of the processes they are doing. So it is action oriented, activity oriented, not theoretically going on. That itself is experiential, and it will definitely help the society people for welfare and development, and their particular goal directed it is learner centered, again it is coming, and it is flexible. So as per the convenience of the people, we can arrange everything. So it will make network building activity also. If these type of units are sharing their knowledge to others, and if they are using other technological interventions in this one, so there will be network building activity, and that will spread over the community to develop. So that will qualify the life and the standard of living of our common people. And finally we can say that this is what the real education for empowerment. Thus, we can continue our process of adult education. So, this is what the development of adult education. So, just if you are going back, once again, once you rewind all the points and bring in your mind that how many points we have told and what all things we have learned, what is adult education, who is an adult, how we can uh, make an adult for further education, and what kind of similar type of educations which provides the base for adult education, and all that terminologies we have learned. We have gone through continuing education, lifelong education, then correspondence education, distance education, open education, distance and open learning. Now came to adult education and its peculiarities. And in ancient India. Sir, can I take 5 minutes break or 1 minute?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. No
Yeah.
problem.
Okay. One second, sir. Then we will come back to how this adult education. Now, adult education implementation stage we attained, and how it was in ancient India, and how it was in medieval India, and after that, before the pre-independence period, post-independence period, then at the current scenario. That much things have been incorporated, like a historical aspect and the current education scenario in this um, study material block 1. So this will help you to make a preparation or a concept regarding adult education. It will make a conceptual learning to you to get through or go through the other areas of other portions of other blocks of this particular course. And I'll be back within 2-3 minutes, please.
Sure, ma'am. Please.
Okay, sir. Is it visible, sir? Okay. Let us proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed. Please.
The slide is visible now, sir? It's visible now?
Yeah. Now it's visible.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Now, so the basic concepts behind our adult education we have discussed. Now, let us go through the historical aspects of adult education in India. In ancient India, how it was going on. We all know that the Gurukula system of education was there in India, and it was one of the best educational system of that time, because the relationship of the learner and the teacher was like a family, and the students were staying with the gurus and gurukulas, and the only learning process, the only strategy for learning, or the only uh, means of learning was hearing. Means there was no textbooks, there was no writing. Students were hearing everything from the mouth of the guru. That was the ancient system. So it is called Sruti. Sruti, gaining the knowledge from hearing or orally transmitted knowledge. That is what Sruti. you know, the Srodava, Shravanam, like that Sanskrit words are there, Shravanam, because the information is gathered or information is absorbed only through our sense organs, means ears. But the students were studying very well, and all that knowledge was transacted or transmitted to others orally. But there was a limitation for that. In an oral tradition, so many other restrictions were there. That is, a group of highly privileged group or the elite group of the society only allowed to learn from gurus. Actually, that concept or that restriction is against adult education concept. The ruling sector, children from the ruling sectors, and even women at that time. That is why I used even. At that time, women education was not at all important. But the elite class of people, they were getting all the opportunity to hear and learn from their teachers, and that teachers were appointed or that teachers were invited for study purposes to their home in the case of the rulers. That type of one uh, education system was there where you can think about the relevance of adult education. So the public, the common public was away from the learning process. After that, this time of the Guru Parambara and the Smriti learning. Smriti means putting the things in memory. That is what Smriti. So Shruti and Smriti were the only method they were using for studying, and that much concentration and commitment were there for learning at that time. And it was transacted through the Guru Parambara only. No common people were allowed to do the process. Nobody was allowed. So we can say that literacy initiatives or the learning process was restricted. That is why restricted literacy I used. So in a scenario or in a society where the literacy is restricted, there won't be a mass education, there won't be an approach of massive education, and adult education concept was not at all there. But a little bit of craft literacy was there. So for vocational purposes, vocational training purposes, a particular group of people were allowed to do crafts. It is a part of their life. But the people from the same community and same family were allowed to come and learn the activities or the skill or the work they were engaged with in Parambara, and that education was communicated. That was also communicated orally. So if the poor people or the working class of the society were learned, if we are saying that they were learned a little bit, it was only through the craft training and the craft works where they were engaged with, because they are skillful people and traditionally they were doing it. But after that, some artistical contributions of the people, these working people, and at the same time the elite people were uh, drawn and kept in temple architecture form, sculptures and paintings preserved. But after doing that, the public were restricted away, and the higher class people were studying it and they were enjoying it, but it was not spread over the public or the mass as in the form of a massive education or adult education. So it was not actually that knowledge, it was a pre-literate world and pre-literate period. when the literacy activities organized or the literacy programs started in India, it was really among the nearest people of the elite class. And the orally transacted bhajans, kirtans, satsang, uh, that type of mantras and all were transacted among the people, means among the public through these people who were handling it. At that time, some people, especially, they were entitled for doing this bhajans and kirtans, and in particular places, especially in the court of the kings and some other festival occasions and all, they were doing it. At that time, also, only elite classes were allowed to come and hear it. But it was not a continuous process. Occasionally was transacted. And when Buddhism came in India, a little bit change has happened, and the Buddhists were not for any discrimination. They were not doing, or they were not making any discrimination among the public. And before the Buddhistic saints, all were equal. And everybody means who wants to have Buddhistic principles, who wants to have the learning of Buddhistic principles, and who wants to chant the mantras or slogas, they were allowed to come to the viharas of Buddhistic uh, saints. And from there, really, the starting of adult education, we can say, in ancient India. Before that, that type of one massive education was not at all practiced. So the starting of democratization of education envisaged at the time of Buddhism. And what Buddhistic people were doing, that they were inscribing the mantras or the sutras or their advices and the guidelines for life, etc., on iron pillars and stones and rocks. And these were uh, placed in public places. And who wants to have knowledge on that and who can go and read it were allowed, and thus started a little bit of massive education. And later in Gupta dynasty, that is AD 320 to 647, a flourishing of Hindu culture was happened because the Gupta rulers or the kings, they started to make books and use of paper, and that type of massive education started at the time of, that is why the Gupta period was considered as the golden period of Indian uh, ruling system. And at that time actually started the development of adult education. And you have heard about um, Ashoka, the Saranath pillars of Buddha, and Gaya, these type of places you have heard about. And the contributions of these pillars and the Buddhistic temples and viharas were very much effective in the adult education system of India in ancient time. And at their time itself started kavya, drama, lyric poetries, and prose were written in books. And it was served as the channels of adult education at that time. In several books of historians regarding adult education, it was written, and an elaborate history of ancient adult education happened in India is given in your study material, and you please go through that. Some of the points I was mentioning here to give you a scaffold to go through the study materials given. And later in medieval India, you know that the contribution of Mughal emperors were countable, and the oral tradition of transmission of knowledge, values, culture, and everything has been converted to a massive education during the medieval period. The rulers, uh, they were providing considerable political patronage and financial support to scholars, especially. But it was not for the financial support was not given to all the massive generation. But it was for scholars and saints, teachers, artists, and that type of skilled persons or professionalized persons were motivated, and they were encouraged with financial help. Also, in the courts of the kings, there were Vidyal Sadas. And Vidyal Sadas, what all things were heard, and public were also allowed, especially in Akbar, Aurangzeb, all that Mughal emperors were given, they were giving opportunity to the public to hear in special occasions. And the places where, means especially the temples, where the scriptures written and the artistic forms of the social discourses were given, and it was transacted in village ceremonies among the public, and that was a time actually given opportunity for the public to get into the skills of 3 hours. And gradually people, they have started the learning, not as adult education, but they have started the literacy activities, literacy programs among the public, and children were allowed, means only a minority is going, means a very few percentage of people were engaged with this type of education, and the majority was not in the thought of going schools, or they were not in the thought of acquiring knowledge. It was not considered for a necessary thing in their livelihood. And later, the small schools started with the temples. They were acting as the places where literacy programs started. And thus, reading, writing, and arithmetic, means acquiring the knowledge or the skill of 3 hours, spread over the people in medieval India. And the other involvement of the Christianity and Islamic rulers' contribution to the knowledge transaction was also considerable, because you know that Prophet Muhammad was also telling that the education process should start uh, from womb to tomb, and it has to be continued like that. And it was considered as a great practice, reading of Holy Quran and Bible, etc., were considered as a great a thing among the public people, and they were encouraging the public to read and to write, and to engage with the small trades and skill acquiring programs. And it started in such a way. And in the medieval India, with the help of the very democratic approach of that emperors, Aurangzeb was considered especially because he was the person who tried to make several books, and that books were reached among the public to read. Like that, a revolution was there in that period in adult education, and it was considered as a starting stage of adult education in India. And gradually, in the colonial uh, period, means British period, adult education in India was it became little bit elaborate, but it is not in the uh, liberal way, for the purpose of uh, creating professionals. One peculiar type of education was imparted among the public, and it was for especially for elite class only. It was not for the common public, but the Christian missionaries and the some national leaders and the socio-religious organizations and some intellectuals. They also made a lot of contributions to develop education system in India, and this was considered as a previous stage of adult education. Totally, we cannot say that it was for adult education, but the massive education initiatives taken among the public without considering their age or level was the starting period of adult education. So, generally, so many organizations were developed at that time in the British period, and they were giving grants for imparting education. Among libraries were created, adult education organizations were created, and in that way, adult education processes started in a formal way in colonial India itself, and uh, per day 2-3 hours transaction of literacy, numeracy, etc. were given, and later in 1882 at the British period itself, Indian Education Commission was submitted, and it observed the province in British India, the provisions for setting up night schools. That night schools were a starting point of our adult education system, and it was located in Bombay and Madras, and several night schools uh, were going on with good enrollment, and 4,000 and 7,000 adults respectively were became literate, and they were participating in adult education programs like that. The report of Indian Education Commission 1882-83 was reporting, and this is an evidence of colonial adult education in colonial India. And then in the post-independent period also, social education programs. That was post-independence period education was not like the previous period education system. It was literally uh, education commissions for adult education programs were developed, generated, and these recommendations, studied recommendations on the basis of philosophical and psychological aspects of education, and they developed the curriculum, and a particular kind of systematic education was provided, and the a noted point in social education programs 1948 to 67 in the chairmanship of Saxena, and that committee was known as Mohanlal Saxena Committee, and he was giving a curriculum of health and hygiene, family and community living, vocational education, literacy and cultural activities, and recreational activities for imparting adult education. And granting aid was given for institutions. So many libraries were created at that time, and adult education in post India was developing in a particular way. And in the next class, I think we will go through elaborately through this point of view, because so many commissions are there, the contributions of commissions, and the curriculum and the education system, how they were developing, and what was the rate of adult education at that time, how to be learned thoroughly, and again we will go through that topic in a historical manner. What were the contributions given in that time? That was only mentioned this time through these points, and elaborately we have to go through each and every point, because that is very important for understanding the development of the adult education system in India. And some philosophers, I told you, some intellectuals, they were personally contributing for adult education, and the educational contributions of Swami Vivekananda was a notable one, because Swami Vivekananda was specifically telling that education is not for this mere literacy, but it should be life building, man making, character making, and assimilation of ideas. This assimilation of ideas is a very big concern, because that includes all type of scientific knowledge and scientific processing of learning. Assimilation is a it's a cognitive process of learning. So when a learner has to be at the level of a cognitive process of learning, that education should be prepared. It should be created in such a way, not for simple massive education, but in a very systematic manner. Education has to be developed in the on the basis of the education contributions given by Vivekananda, especially this definition was taken from his talk in Advaita Ashrama. Advaita Ashrama is an ashrama in Aluva. Aluva is near in Ernakulam district. It is in Kerala. In 1990, Swami Vivekananda was giving this a talk to the sannyasins of Advaita Ashrama, and on the basis of Swami Vivekananda's educational contribution, an adult education revision, reformation was happened in India, and what was that curriculum and other things will be elaborately discussed in the next class. I was telling that the pinpointing contributions of some intellectuals. In 1920s also, so many night schools were prepared, and at that time, public education, with the objective of public education or massive education, lecturers were, so many public lectures were organized through films, through dramas, art forms, etc. Awareness programs were imparted, and so many discussions and debates were organized in social, cultural, and political organizations, and libraries were taking part in the education imparting, especially in adult educations. At that time, almost all the night classes were conducted at libraries, and people were using newspaper reading and other books in from the libraries, and wise discussions were there among. That made a very big revolution in political, economic, and cultural aspects of Indian people, and it started and it encouraged people to start schools, not only for formal education, but at the same time, non-formal education institutions were started, and thus very elaborately adult education initiatives were taken place, and so many community development projects were, including constructive programs. And again, Bombay, Burma, central provinces of Punjab, etc., were the hubs. In 1990, Kerala became the 100% literate district in India, and I think sometimes it may be. Sir, are you there?
Yeah, yes, I am here.
Sir, Ernakulam is the first 100% literacy.
I suppose it's Kottayam.
In Kerala, India, or in the world?
Sir?
In the
No,
world.
in India.
In India only.
Yeah.
Next comes Punjab, because Punjab was also taking a lot of effort, initiatives for imparting literacy among the public. And generally, I'm telling now the historical aspects. So many pinpointed derivations are given for establishment of night schools and other adult education institutions all over India. And the rate of adult education, it's increased, and the development and contributions are also given separately in the tables in the study material. And I think next class we can very clearly tell all these matters. Now you just go through the an overall pinpoint. YMCA organizations, other non-governmental organizations, especially in Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, Pune, and some other societies, Seva Southern Society of Bombay. These are the public involvement for developing adult education. Then Reconstruction Trust in Madras, Bengal Society for the Improvement of Backward Classes, Bengal Social Service League, and cooperative schools in the United Provinces had also shown their interest in the promotion of adult education. And Bengal, West Bengal, Kolkata was a hub for literature clubs and literacy programs, night clubs, and night class schedules organized, and they were one of the premier institutions at that time for imparting adult education. Like that, this Rural Reconstruction Association of Benares, Bombay Sanitary Association, Saksharata Prasarat Mandal, Bombay Literacy Association, is like that. So many institutions all over India started literacy programs, and continuing education was also imparted for bringing adult education in a full-fledged manner. And thus, this massive education started. And at that time, a lot of films were produced, a lot of documentary films for health education and society and economy and political involvement of the people for the development and the well-being of the society, etc., were done at that time. And that was also an informal system and a non-formal system of education, which was helping for the contribution of adult education. And then um, some adult education um, organizations were there all over India. Just I am giving you some of the names. Social education program started in 1948 to 67. Then functional literacy program started in 68 to 77. National adult education program of 78 to 87. Programs of National Literacy Mission 88 to 2017. And the current global and regional national scenarios of literacy organizations were there, and they were highlighting the need of literacy initiative for empowerment. More than that of literacy, uh, the objective was highlighted for initiatives for empowerment, and differences in regional literacy rates were studied. On the basis, further institutions were developed, and efforts were taken to reducing the gap between men and women, that is gender gap in literacy rates. So at this scenario, beyond the institutions, research studies were started, assessment studies were started on the already happened developments, and trying to uh, eradicate the social barriers and inequalities among the public. Among them, gender inequality was one of the biggest thing, and there were gap in the rate of literacy in men and women, because at that time also women were not generally sent for literacy programs. Especially it was conducted, most of the programs were conducted at nights, so men got opportunity for getting educated through the adult education programs of that time. But gradually, the studies conducted in the level of assessment studies of the implemented programs, and the efforts were taken to narrow the gender gap in literacy rates. Like that, they have found out the regional gaps, gender gaps and regional gaps, in which area literacy rate is still stands low, and where it has to be implemented further, and what all initiatives have to be taken for um, uh, bringing down the gap between regions, like that of gender. Then policies were changed after the research studies and developmental projects. Definitely there should be literacy practices and policies. So many long term objectives and commitments of literacy were taken into consideration, and language difficulties were also considered, and gender difficulties especially it was considered, and in which language it feels, or literacy programs were taken place in a very slow manner, and what all initiatives have to be taken in particular languages to bring the initiatives of literacy programs in a mainstream way, like gender issues. And policies of adult education were taken for developing fundamental education. Literacy, after literacy, once the society has gained the rate of literacy, further it has to be taken for fundamental education. Because the primary level or secondary level, like that, a a standard level will be considered by the policymakers, and the education system will be developed and generated for gaining knowledge in that particular level, as we have already told about fundamental education. Then functional literacy was just after the attainment of literacy objectives, functional literacy was considered, and continuing education became a routine work or a day-to-day base activity or process of education all over India after that, in 1960s and 70s. Then radical approach of literacy of Paulo Freire, I will tell you what it is. And all these matters, fundamental education, functional literacy, radical approach of literacy, broadening the capacity of concept of literacy, emphasis on adult literacy and learning, etc., were considered as a policy for developing the system of adult education. Then let us see what is fundamental education. Fundamental education policy was aiming the literacy acquisition as essential aspect of individual development and human rights. How in the later stages universalization of primary education became like that at the during 1950s to 60s. Fundamental education was considered as a right of the people, and it is a needed step for the human development, and for imparting this basic literacy skills, reading and writing was made a compulsory part of education. And then functional literacy was also considered as a policy. That means human capital model of education. That is what functional literacy policy, that is literacy as a necessary condition for economic growth and national development. Functional literacy for enhancing productivity. Lifelong learning implicit in the expanded concept of functional literacy means without functional literacy enhancement, we cannot aim at lifelong education, and it will definitely it will incorporate divergent human concepts and functions encompassing the whole life. That is what continuing education. So functional literacy is a needed base, or it is a needed matter for further education, for human capacity development, and for economic development of the nation, and productivity, etc., were considered, and so many initiatives were taken on the basis of the functional literacy policy. Then let us see what is radical approach to literacy. Radical literacy is the adult education philosophy of Paulo Freire, and it is an approach to literacy. That is, acquisition of basic literacy skills not as an end. So we know that especially a lot of literacy programs were conducted in Kerala, and continuing education was also there. Once we are declaring that a state or a district is 100% literate, whether there were activities or researches for checking this status is continuing or not. That is what radical approach to literacy. We should not consider the literacy as an final end, but it has to be considered as only a means for continuing education or for further educational developments. So developing critical consciousness, this was already told earlier. What is critical consciousness? The people should be free to ask questions against the systems, against the activities of the systems, the political policies, the economic status, or the what all social matters are happening in between should be critically analyzed by the people. For that, we have to be bold enough. We have to be develop the capacity to reflect on the social matters. For that, this functional literacy is not enough. So continuing education is needed. Higher level of education is needed. So that education with the objective of freedom has to be developed. That is what radical approach to literacy. This was also an emphasis on transformative potential of literacy. Means society for transformation and education for transformation of the society and later for the human development. So that was the base for that policy of 1970s. Then again in 80s to 90, that means in the 1980s, the broadening of the concept of literacy was focused in the policies made at that time. What all policies and what were the literature organizations, adult education organizations were created at that time, that we will go through. But the aim of broadening of literacy was the basic concept in this broadening of concept of literacy policy in 1980s, and through this literacy became the part of the broader agenda of education for all, not for a small portion of the small percentage of the society, but for all. And this through which education was imparted compulsorily for children, youth, and adults. And this endorsement of literacy became an indispensable skill for lifelong learning and community engagement. And adult literacy for considered in a growing emphasis 2000 onwards to till. So recognition of the challenge that literacy poses for social and economic development. Literacy as essential life skill for all in the 21st century. So it became an integral part of the basic education and focuses on learning needs all, and minimum MLL program like that. A lot of programs were there. A particular level of standards were kept even in school level, not in the adult education level, but in the school level also. Students should acquire a particular level of learning, and remedial measures, so many other teaching strategies were imparted through education authorities and the apex bodies of higher education, school education, etc. And that kind of an initiative was taken care in the adult education scenario also, to impart higher level of education among the public as a continuing education. So these were the concerns in the development of adult education in till time. In a historical way, in a general way, I was presenting all these matters, and we will go through elaborately in the next sessions. The last few points I discussed only for giving you a base. I think you will be able to go through your study materials, and you can come back with an understanding, not thorough understanding, but with a general understanding in the aspects given in the study materials of the first half of the block 1 of MAE 001, and also you can just go through the second block MAE 001, and where the next 4 units are given. We can discuss at that time. If more students are coming, we can do the process in a discussion manner, or like an interactive manner with these basic points. Let me stop today's session here. And thank you very much, Rajesh sir, for being with me throughout the program. And you are making this session very fruitful and meaningful with your conversations and your points given as add-on. And I was also became enlightened with your submissions and discussions. Thank you very much once again, sir. Let me stop here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that very exhaustive presentation. It's almost full 2.5 hours since you started, and without a break, you have been continuing with the session. A lot of issues, lot of aspects, both from the theoretical and from the practical point of view, were discussed. And one of the aspects that came to my mind is that for the success of continuing education process as such, community involvement is essential. And if you look at any of the successful education programs or continuing education programs for this be specific, we can find that it is only through community involvement that they have succeeded, whether they are the literacy programs or the functional education programs or the higher level education programs. The community involvement has been very, very important. And that's one of the reasons why this continuing education and adult education programs are so important. Because they in fact empower the adults to achieve something higher. We can ourselves see the kind of change in attitude of people ever since this literacy programs became a success. The way they interact on various social and economic issues, on social problems also, the way that they interact and bring it to the fore, everything has changed over a period of time. And that is something that is so significant about these adult education programs. So all these have been brought to a very great extent to the fore in your presentation. And I'm sure in the future sessions, much deeper analysis and understanding will take place on all these aspects. In fact, I am also very thankful to you, Madam, for that very exhaustive presentation. This video will surely be uploaded on R.C. Vadagara's YouTube channel, and it will be accessible not only to the students of adult education program, but also to other programs, as are all R.C. Vadagara videos. And therefore, I think it is a significant addition to the knowledge repository that we have with us as far as our YouTube channel is concerned. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the effort that you have taken in preparing and presenting this session.
Thank you very much, sir.
And we look forward to your next session next week.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will now stop the this thing recording. And,
okay, sir.
just a second. Stop the recording.